Hey guys, Christian Hernandez here. Today we're gonna do a Tekno eb410 build. Now, the Tekno eb410, I've ran it twice so far on carpet, and man, it's a remarkable car. I'm so impressed of how Tekno designed the car, how it handles. It honestly handles like no other 10 scale buggy 4x4 out there, which is a good thing. And I just want to give you my little personal experience. I ran at Ricochet Raceway this past Friday and Sunday. First time driving the 13.5 car. I did drive the mod car once before, but first time driving this specific car. So I only have about 3 runs in total with this platform in general. But the car is very stable, very easy to tune. Little tuning modifications, you can definitely see the car react, even like camber, toe, ride height, all those little adjustments, sway bars, you can definitely notice on the car and actually really like make it into your driving style. For this review, I tried keeping the car as close to stock as possible. On my mod car, I already did all the carbon fiber upgrades, but for this review, I wanted to do is pretty much of a stock car, and the only things that's not stock is the front sway bar kit and the optional springs. Everything else you can tune straight from the box. Like option parts such as the optional C and D blocks, the -2mm tower, everything like that, like the new carbon fiber top deck, they're all awesome upgrades, but the car is just fine competitively right out the box. So going into that, let's go into the actual review. Taking the body off, we're going to look at the actual chassis design. Now Tekno is the first that I've seen to do a reverse bell crank, which that's pretty sick, but we'll get to that a bit later. But first we're going to focus on the shaft drives and differentials. Now we're going to take a quick peek at my car right now. And as you can see, the driveline is super straight and all the weight is forward. Now what they are doing here is they're trying to get all the weight forward, and that's supposed to be better for higher bite surfaces, which probably 90%, 95% of the tracks nowadays are either running some form of medium bite to super high bite clay. You got carpet tracks, Astro tracks. It's really designed for the 2017 year, which a lot of the other buggies, they're all based on older platforms or that idea. Now, one of the first upgrades that you usually have to buy with other kits, but you don't have to buy with this kit, is the aluminum drive shafts in the center of the car. Especially for 13.5, you're going to want to reduce your rotating mass as much as possible. Tekno already includes the aluminum drive shafts, so that's just a big seller on how to not only make the car more competitive, but easier for the buyer to not have to worry about, oh, what parts I need to buy, etc. Another thing we're going to look at is the diffs. Now the diffs on this car are quite a bit different than your standard 10 scale buggy. They are a lot bigger, so they hold more oil capacity. What that's going to do, it's going to make your runs a lot more consistent, and you won't have to run really high diff fluid. Like for example, on the B64, you have to run 100K up front, 1,000,000 in the center, and 100K in the rear, or something like that if you're running on carpet. On this car, you don't have to go to that extreme. Like on my mod car, I went 10, 60, and 5 in the rear. On this car on carpet, I went straight box stock setup because I wanted to see what the car could do and what small changes I didn't need to make out the box. I hope that makes sense. So I wanted to try to keep it close as box stock as possible, and then run it on carpet and see how it would do, and then make modifications then. And I'll be honest, I ran this car last Friday and this Sunday at Ricochet, and besides doing little spring change, front sway bar, rear toe difference, the car is pretty much box stock. Stock oils, stock diffs. Just wanted to keep it as stock as possible, and I was burning really fast laps, and I was quite surprised because is my first run with a 13.5 and a 10 scale four-wheel drive buggy, really, in my racing career. So going into more of the driveline, going into the axles of the car, they are a CVD or a CVA style drive shaft, and what that's going to do, it's going to allow more mechanical bind on the car, which is really good for these high bite surfaces because it really gets your power to the ground. And another thing is they do a lot better on smooth surfaces, which in reality all 10 scale tracks, they're super smooth now. Like the old, like maybe 15 years ago rutted up tracks, those are very vastly rare. Going into the reverse bell crank system, this is my favorite part of the car, and it's because not only is this the first time the industry has seen this in a 10 scale buggy, but it's the first time I've gotten to drive a reverse bell crank, and the car was super smooth steering. Like even on carpet, I didn't have to worry about it being too twitchy or like getting out of control. The steering was just the right amount. And Tekno also offers in the kit steering stop washers, so you can actually limit your travel, which is pretty good because let's say you have too much steering that could cause the rear to kick out. It's an easy tuning option to reduce steering and actually create more stability in your car. But just to give you a quick look on that, I'll give you a little servo action. It's honestly a really great design. I know there was some concerns about people like, oh, it's a reverse bell crank's first one, how's it gonna do? I tested the durability on the mod car and this car, and I've had zero breaks and pretty much zero wear. It lives up to the Tekno standard as far as durability and wear, and I'm really psyched to try this car out on multiple tracks such as clay, Astro, and other carpet tracks. But the reverse bell crank, you see that a lot in two-wheel drive buggies, but on the four-wheel drive buggy, it just smooths out the steering, which I feel like on a lot of four-wheel drive platforms right now, it's like your car is like on rails, but in like a really like uncontrollable way. And the reverse bell crank really just calms it down. Going into the aluminum components of the car, there is not much you need to upgrade, to be honest. All aluminum A, B, C, and D blocks are included in the kit, and that's really good for durability, so you don't have to worry about there. There are optional C and D blocks for those who are running Astro or carpet that they want to lower your pills when you use your gearbox shims. And what that's doing is when you're raising your gearbox shims with the standard standard C and D blocks, you're actually raising your roll center in general. So by having the optional C and D blocks, you can create your proper roll center, which you'll need on carpet. Those are an upgrade kit, but the stock blocks I used on carpet with the 2mm shim. And what I did was, on the actual pills, I actually lowered the pills. So I'm running it all the way down on the pill just to regain that roll center with the stock pills. So even with the stock blocks on carpet, the car was dialed to the max. And that's really saying a lot because a lot of these cars you have to like literally change your whole car, and here I'm just doing very minor changes just to see how the car does box stock. Going to the shocks. Now I've heard a lot of like buzz about these shocks. The 13mm, which is virtually not existent in the 10 scale platform, so that's really cool because your dampeners are so much better. When you flat land or when you hit the jump a bit too hard, the suspension just soaks it up. As far as springs, that's another topic of the car that people didn't like. I personally haven't seen a huge problem with the springs. Tekno has a great variety of springs, ranging from pink, green, yellow, orange, and red rates. Red being the stiffest, pink being the lightest. And what I ran at Ricochet, which is a super high bite carpet, is red fronts and orange rears. And the car felt really balanced, but actually the first time I took it out, I ran orange, and it was really good also. I just did red just to calm the steering down a bit. But there are a few ways that if you wanted a stiffer spring, I'm sure Tekno in the future will come out with new springs. They're always evolving, they're always innovating, so don't discount the shock just because it's a bigger bore, because that's actually better. It's going to be way better for the suspension. And there's little few tricks that you can do, like if you follow Ryan Lutz or his Lutzinator blog, he actually put a bit of rear weight on the car. And what this does, it just changes the weight bias on the car a bit. That way you didn't have to run a stiffer spring. And as you can see, the car is highly successful on carpet, as he just got 3rd place at the IOCC race, which is quite an accomplishment due to him not even running carpet, and I think it was like his 2nd or 3rd time running the car. The point is, the car is very versatile and really adapts to tuning changes. Just this past weekend, I was doing some changes on my mod car, and you could really feel the changes. Even the bad changes, like even if you said, oh, you went the wrong direction, you knew you went the wrong direction. And when you can take that into consideration, that when you're tuning, it's a lot easier to tune because you know what you're doing right and you know what you're doing wrong. Going into the chassis weight distribution, that's another key feature on this car that looks like no other. As you can tell, a lot of the chassis guys, or just people who bought the car, feel like the chassis is like backwards, because your normal 4-wheel drive car has all the weight in the back and they have like the shocks up front. And there was a few minor things like reviews that I've seen, like why did they go in this direction. Again, with the high bite surfaces that we're running into now in 2017, high bite, slicks, carpet, it really just makes the car that much easier to drive. You can look at the B6. They're moving all their weight forward. And really, Tekno is keeping up to date with today's tracks. And to be honest, even on low bite tracks, the forward weight design is going to actually carry a bit more corner speed, because the rear end's going to follow the front. So when you're going through transitioning through turns, you're going to be able to create a lot more corner speed with the forward weight design. Now what this is going to do is, when you have that all the way forward, you're not going to need your forward rear shocks. And that's another thing I saw a couple of guys comment on. Why doesn't the car have forward rear shocks? Well, you have to look at this as a totally different animal than any other 10 scale car. With the weight being all the way forward, you're going to want the shocks in the rear to get your rear bite. So for me, even on carpet, like some guys are like, you shouldn't be running rear shocks like that format. Even on carpet, I had enough corner speed and enough rear grip to run really fast laps. So I definitely don't discount the design. It's a 2017 design. Tekno did 5 years of background on their research for this car, and I really believe it paid off. Like I said, it's the first time I'm doing the review on the car. About the 3rd time I've driven the car in total, and I'm really impressed. Another thing I want to mention is the chassis. The chassis is a 70-75 aluminum, which is really high grade aluminum. And as you can see on carpet, virtually no wear, but it is carpet. Another thing I want to mention is the towers. The towers are insane. They are 10 millimeters up front and 8 millimeters in the back. I personally can't even fathom how you can break one. It's just so durable. They're the only cars that have that thick of a tower. Everybody else has about 4 millimeters. So Tekno is just going beyond the distance of durability, making sure you finish races with this car. Another thing that I did take off on the car for carpet is the rear chassis braces. As you can see, I'm not running them, but they are included in the kit. And the reason why I took them off is because when you're driving on carpet, you're going to want as much flex as possible, just because with the hard landings or like the quick reaction turns, you want the chassis to actually flex a bit more, and this is just going to make it more forgiving. Going next, the front sway bar. I did run the front sway bar on this car because it is essential for carpet. You'll just have a bit of a harder time with steering, being too aggressive if you're not running a front sway bar. But if you're running on dirt, clay, even on Astro, the front sway bar is not needed. On carpet, such as like IOCC, Ricochet Raceway, 702 Raceway, you're going to want that front sway bar. So other than that, aluminum servo horn, which is pretty much standard. Tekno just came out with a double spline servo horn, so it's reversible for not only low profile servos but standard servos. Other than that, the car has been great, very good first impressions. As far as durability, I'm going to bring that up again because that is a selling factor on this car. I mean, even with my mod car and my 13.5 car, I was practicing. There's a guy in the straightaway that was flipped over, didn't see him in time, and I pegged the crap out of him. And this happened probably like 2 or 3 times within the 2 or 3 times I tested the car. And no bent parts, everything's straight. Car is super tunable and durable. And that's basically my review of the car. I'm really happy with the car. Tune's great to all the things I wanted to do. As far as the modifications that you want to do with the car, I'll mention some upgrades. They do have a carbon fiber fan mount, which I do highly recommend you get, just because carbon fiber, it's lighter, and it places the fan right on top of the motor, which is really cool. Another upgrade I would definitely say you would want in your toolbox, but that's not needed, is the optional C&D blocks. As if you're running on carpet or Astro, you're going to want to have that tuning option available. As far as shock towers, I don't believe they need to be upgraded. I don't foresee you breaking the 10mm or 8mm shock towers. However, if you're trying to cut weight, you're going to want to run the carbon fiber shock towers that Tekno provides. They are 4mm front and rear, and I tested those on the mod car, and they are super durable. The only thing you have to do with the towers is basically CA glue them. All that does is seal the carbon fiber. Other than that, Tekno just released a steering top plate, which is really cool because you're not only getting the carbon fiber that cuts weight, but also makes it that sleek looking design. Other than that, some foreseeable upgrades that were mentioned in the future were the new carbon towers that are also -2mm, which I actually tested down the mod car. And what that does is when you raise your gearbox with the gearbox shims, you're changing your shock up travel and droop setting. And what that does is with the new shock tower that's -2mm, you're regaining your stock droop and up travel. Other than that, another new part I believe that's coming out is the camber link plate. I believe they're coming with a -2mm one of that. And aluminum shock caps. I have heard some gripes about the shock caps. Personally, I believe when you're installing the shock cap, you want to do about a half turn to 3/4 turn counterclockwise to seat the shock onto seat the shock cap onto the shock. I personally never stripped any of them. It's just a place where you have to be a bit careful, but other than that, the aluminum shock caps, I have seen they are on the upgrade list. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But overall, out the box, the only upgrades I did to the car for carpet was the front sway bar kit and springs. But if you're running dirt, high bite dirt, you're pretty much solid. Even on some Astros, you're going to be fully set. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, leave some comments below. Or you can PM me on my Facebook at CJ Hernandez. And if you have any comments on the video, I am doing a YouTube series, and this is the first official video, so I'll be doing assortment of videos, so please like and subscribe for new RC content, and I'll see you guys on the next time. Thanks for watching, guys.